Richard in Wolverhampton says, George, tonight's show is fascinating. I'm very interested in the history of the Troubles. Who was James Connolly? I know nothing about him. Well, I'm getting the picture, actually, that not everyone knows who Carson is. Somebody thought it was Frank Carson, the comedian. And some are getting mixed up between Billy Connolly and James Connolly. I don't really have time to go into a major history lesson, but James Connolly was Scotch steel tempered with Irish fire, as Hugh MacDiarmid said in his epic poem to Connolly. He was born in Scotland. He lived for a time, in fact, in the same street as I did, in Dundee, in St. Mary's Lane. I briefly lived there. He lived there a little longer than I did. And he was executed in his chair, tied to his chair, because he was severely wounded in the Easter Rising in 1916, when the spiritual founders of the Irish Republic that the Queen visited over the last few days rose up and seized the General Post Office to spark what became the Irish Rebellion, which triumphed in a general election victory for Irish independence, where 75% of the people voted for an Ireland free of the British Crown. And then, as I've said several times, a man called Carson, later Lord Carson, rose up in a terrorist movement to try to thwart the democratic wishes of the Irish people. He formed a volunteer force, which was entirely illegal. It was an act of rebellion against the very crown that he claimed to have allegiance to. He armed those volunteers with guns, with bombs, with grenades. He sought the mutiny of British regiments stationed in the northeast of Ireland, and may well have got it. And he threatened the Crown with a terrorist war in order to stop Ireland becoming independent. Rather than face him down, the British government then partitioned the country, carefully drawing the boundaries of what is now called Northern Ireland, to maintain what they hoped would be in perpetuity a unionist majority that wanted to remain with Britain. And that statelet became a byword in the modern world for discrimination, bigotry, and the entirely lawful, actually, gerrymandering and cheating of the minority in the northeast statelet. And that led to the civil rights marches in the late 1960s, with Bernadette Devlin and John Hume and other well-known people now, who were then young people, rising up under such challenging slogans as one man, one woman, one vote. Because in 1968, when they rose up for that, many people in the north of Ireland had several votes, and Catholics overwhelmingly were lucky to get one. So the civil rights marches and the huge movement for civil rights in the northeast was cracked down upon by the sectarian police force, especially the B specials, and the modern IRA campaign was born. Thankfully, most of that is now in the past, though not all of it. There is a peace process. Martin McGuinness is the Deputy Prime Minister of that northeast statelet. And Peter Robinson, the leader of the most hard-line unionist faction, the Democratic Unionists, is the Prime Minister, and they sit together. Indeed, the sight of Martin McGuinness chuckling with the Reverend Ian Paisley, giving rise to the term the Chuckle Brothers, is one of the most remarkable political transformations to take place anywhere in the world. And I, for one, wish that process every success.